Today we're going to take a few minutes and we're going to talk about the fourth lure. If you couldn't tell, the fourth lure is a topwater lure. Now there are a ton of quality topwaters on the market. We prefer to use a Jackal Bonnie 95 like this one. This one's been retired. It's caught a bunch of fish. If you can't find a Jackal Bonnie because Shimano no longer imports them, you can look on eBay, or any other 3 to 4 inch topwater lure would do the choice. Or do the trick. Now they're not all created equal. Some are going to be louder than others. Some are going to be a little quieter. Some aren't going to walk as well. Keep that in mind. Rapala makes a wonderful lure called a Skitter V. Does a great job. Comes in a variety of colors. Now when you're looking for a color option, the majority of the baits have a white bottom. And they have a white bottom because a mullet, a redfish, a trout, they all have white bellies. So keep that in mind and pick a lure that you can see in the water. I used a pink one for a long time because whether it was sunrise or sunset, I could see that pink lure out there floating in the water, and I never had any issues. I wouldn't be too upset about the color, just make sure the bottom is white. Learning to properly use a topwater lure can be a bit of a challenge, but the next few tips should have you guys pointed in the right direction. Tip number 1, you have no reason to use a swivel or a clip with your topwater lure. I actually met a guy probably last year who was having trouble walking the dog, and he was using a tactical angler's clip on a Spook Junior. And it's just not going to work. The clip's going to go on the front. It's going to change the way the lure sits in the water. You're going to have a hard time walking that bait. Now, if you're using a bigger top water, say something over 5 inches, you might not have too big of a deal. But if you're having trouble walking the lure, make sure that lure is sitting naturally in the water. A lure like this Jackal is going to sit pretty much vertical while floating in the water. Some lures will sit a little flatter, but if you put a weight right here, it's going to pull down on the front, and then it's not going to walk properly. Keep that in mind. Tip number 2, I don't recommend tying your lure directly to braided line. Braid has no form of stretch and it floats. What will happen is the braid will catch the front hook very, very often. It's just not going to work right. You're going to run into a ton of problems. The braid will form a crazy knot around that front treble hook somehow, and it's just not going to be efficient. It's going to cause problems. You're going to be upset. You're not going to get the action that you're looking for. Tip number 3. When you're fishing from the kayak, I recommend you use a 7-foot rod, medium action 7-foot rod, nothing too stiff. It's going to give you a ton of headaches and you're not going to be able to walk the dog properly. When I'm teaching a client to throw top water, I always tell them to focus on the butt of the rod. It's important that you keep about an inch from your forearm right here and you just bump that butt off the end of your forearm, and the end of the rod will sway back and forth perfectly, walking the dog with little effort. If you pay attention to the front of the rod, more often than not, you're going to move the rod tip too far. So it's important that you just pay attention to the butt, hit it off your forearm, find a cadence, and you will make it work. It's very, very easy, and only moving the butt about an inch is what you want. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Tip number 4, it's important to remember that the reel is only used to store line. It's not used to move the lure. When you move the rod tip, you'll create slack in the line, and you should use the reel to pick up that slack. But you don't want to be steadily moving the lure with the reel. It's not a swim bait. It's important that you keep a little bit of slack line out there so that lure has time to dart left and dart right. If you keep too tight of a line, it has no room to move. The lure is not going to walk properly. You're going to run into a bunch of issues. Learning how to use a topwater is an important tool to have in the box. One of the common mistakes I always see is guys trying too hard, trying to move the lure with the rod tip, trying to move the rod tip 3 feet, when really you only want the lure to move an inch at the most. It'll just dart back and forth. With a good topwater lure, you can even get it to pop back and forth and never actually move if the current is blowing away from you. It's super impressive, but it's something that takes time to learn and figure out. So I definitely recommend spending a bunch of time trying to figure that out while you're on the water. If you have any questions or you want to book a trip that is more learning, more geared towards learning, let us know. Give us a call or shoot us an email and we will make it happen. We use a topwater lure in a variety of situations. One, it's an incredible surf bait. If I'm fishing a new body of water or I know the fish are spread out, I'll throw the topwater, and even if the fish don't eat it, you can see the reaction. If the fish pops up behind the lure and chases it, you know that fish was there. But if that fish is not interested, you go back to the first lure or the second lure, the third lure, you throw the jerkbait, you throw the paddle tail, you throw the fluke, you change the presentation, you change the size of the bait. and more often than not, you're going to catch those fish. But if you are looking over a new body of water for fish, I highly recommend throwing that top water until you find the fish you're looking for. If you haven't checked out the other videos in the Rules of Thumb playlist, do it. There's a ton of awesome information that's going to help you guys catch more fish. If you have any questions, head on over to our questions and answers playlist. There's a ton of questions in there that have been asked by people who watch these videos. There's a link in all of those descriptions. You can go to our website. You can submit your question. We'll take some time. We'll answer them. Obviously, there's a ton of the queue we haven't got to yet. But if you have a question, make sure you go over there and submit it. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the videos. Make sure you smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed or you don't follow our Facebook page, you should. Post a ton of helpful information. We catch a ton of fish on our charters. If you noticed what I did during the tip section, let me know in the comments below. I don't think you did, but I'm interested to see the comments. Thanks for watching, guys.